6 questions that were asked that I think are worth paying attention to by the offguardian.org. Listen to this. So what's really going on? Is the apparent Taliban victory masking the true narrative? Afghanistan has fallen, that's the line. The Taliban forces have taken the opportunity of U.S. NATO withdrawal and swept across the entire country, taking every major city within a week and barely a shot fired. Joe Biden is being blamed for this lack of a plan, even as Democrats try to shift the blame to Trump, who first decided to pull the U.S. out of Afghanistan over 18 months ago. Meanwhile, the press are reporting dozens of stories about the humanitarian crises, refugees fleeing the new regime, the fate of women under the Taliban, and shocking videos of desperate people. That's the official story, but what is really going on? Number one, did the Taliban really win? First, let's be clear, the U.S. has not pulled out of Afghanistan, not in the true sense of the phrase. They still reserve the right to bomb the place. They are still private contractors in the country, and the Pentagon are already booking their return tickets. Secondly, the Taliban didn't win. They were unopposed. More than unopposed, they were directly aided. When the U.S. abandoned Bagram Air Base, they left hundreds of armored vehicles, weapons, and over 5,000 alleged Taliban prisoners, all of which accidentally fell into the hands of the advancing Taliban forces. There are a lot of articles in the mainstream media endeavoring to explain this. The Guardian, the Telegraph, the Financial Times, and the non-Financial Times, they all give it a go. The Washington Post, Max Boot, writing for the Council on Foreign Relations, ties himself in mental knots trying to explain how the Afghan army, with superior numbers and firepower, collapsed under pressure. Question number 2, is the chaos real? Now, here's one thing. I saw people falling from the sky. At least I thought I did. You see the video of people who are flapping body parts coming out of the landing gear of the C-17. At least I thought I did. But there was other things that I saw that I was wondering why it looked so celebratory in many ways. On the runway, as these C-17s were taking off, there was a lot of people who didn't seem very scared and were actually like smiling and running around and having a good time. I don't know. The media have been generating memes to sell the chaos of the Taliban advance. The go-to comparison had been the fall of Saigon because the completely unintentional near-identical images went viral. We were treated to a lot of viral video footage ranging from the questionable. And that is this: does this video not ring true to anyone else? If these are desperate refugees, where are the women and children? Why are most of them jogging nonchalantly and making no effort to get on the plane? Why are people stopping, smiling, waving to the camera in Afghanistan airport? And that, listen, it's something I've asked myself too. It's something I had asked myself too. A lot of I'm posing these questions because I don't have the answers, and I figured that we should get everything out there. And then, of course, there are these things of the outright bizarre. The Taliban take control of a theme park in Kabul, and they start riding the bumper cars. That's it. Those are Taliban fighters in bumper cars. All of this serves a purpose aside from the distraction of emotive metaphors and lurid headlines. It all aids in the construction of a narrative. In this case, the idea of U.S. mistakes and incompetence and wishful thinking are discussed at length, without ever touching on the true mendacity at heart of the Afghan invasion. The end of the Afghan war is being used to rebrand its beginnings. The Taliban are propped up as villains again and associated with Al-Qaeda, as if they were ever anything but a Western tool in the first place. People are making this about spreading democracy and counterterrorism and, of course, feminism. Here's the next thing. The next question. What about the heroin? The press has a long history of not just lying about Afghan heroin, but totally inverting the truth. In 2019, for example, during the farcical leak of the Afghan papers, the press lamented the U.S. failure to curb the opium trade. Failure to curb the opium trade. Like I said, a friend of mine, my friend Andy, who was one of the first boots on the ground in Afghanistan with the Air Force, he was the first one to tell me on this show while we were still at the old studio. The first time he called in at the old studio was probably 2015 or early 2016. That the opium fields in Afghanistan was providing a black budget of over $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year. That's on top of the $700 billion plus that the Pentagon has given just on the books. The press has a long history. Okay, Afghanistan currently produces around 90% of global heroin. When the U.S. invaded in 2001, that number was much closer to zero. The Taliban outlawed the growing of opium poppies in early 2001, and by the end of that year, the business was almost extinct. The U.S. invaded in November 2001, and opium production has increased almost every year since then. We don't need to go into the CIA's link to the drug trade here or how much money people have made from the heroin production. That's not relevant. What we need to ask is, what now? Will the newly reinstated Taliban put an end to this trade again, or will production continue? According to the press, the heroin will continue to flow. In fact, the Taliban will increase production because, quote, the illegal drug trade helps fuel them, they say. If the illegal drug trade continues, then I would put out a theory that the Taliban are actually not in control of the country. Then again, the big problem that's going on, I mean, there's heroin, that's always been a problem, but there's also fentanyl. We've got enough fentanyl to kill everybody in the country many times over, being smuggled into the over our borders that starts in China, that's refined in China. China's doing to us what we did in the opium wars, which of course was part of Gladio. Here's another thing. Will there be any political fallout, they ask. What are the next steps? Where is this going? Well, in the U.S., President Joe Biden is experiencing some pretty heavy flack. Even his usually stalwart supporters at CNN ran the headline, quote, Joe Biden is facing a crisis of competence. This is what I'm wondering. That's why I said before, is this going to be a time to push Biden out, as everybody always assumed that he would not complete a term? And if so, why? Why? He does everything that he's told. Kamala Harris is far more unpopular than he is. Why? Because she's younger? She's a woman? What is the fallout? I don't know. Here's a question number 5. Is there another refugee crisis on the way? That's a big one. The Afghanistan narrative will fuel other big narratives going forward. Firstly, there is the coming refugee crisis, the worst since World War II, according to Tobias Ellwood, who can always be relied upon to promote deep state talking points. Which is weird because I'm sure that that's what they're saying about the refugee crisis in 2016 too. Oh, and in 2019. The UK's Defence Secretary has already announced plans to allow Afghan asylum seekers into Britain without passports. Angela Merkel is advocating for similar steps in Germany, and the U.S. press is also on board. Last night when I went to go pick up my dinner from the diner, I was watching Fareed Zakaria and that dead stare loser meathead Chris Cuomo talking about Afghan migrants that need to be taken in because it is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and of course, conservatives are calling it the brown invasion. Apparently, I haven't heard that, but they're saying that it's the brown invasion. We don't want to take any of the brown people from Afghanistan, the country that we wrecked. And I don't think that, like we've said before with these migrant crises, you go around the world stomping on everybody's countries, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever the hell it is. It is nobody around here who wanted those wars. This is all from people at the top. So they destroy their countries, and then they destroy the countries who supposedly vote them into office back here at home and in Europe, destroy the entire world. By then saying, if you don't take the migrants that we are creating from these illegal wars, you are xenophobic, and multiculturalism is the way to go. This is insane. And the last question is, will we see a major terrorist attack? It's only been a few days since the quote-unquote fall of Kabul, but already the renewed terrorism threat is making waves in the press. The Sun, in its usual understated style, headlines Red Alert. Britain faces a direct threat of terrorism from Taliban's Afghan takeover in new wave of terror against the West. A rather more sedate report from the AP says concerns over U.S. terror threats rising as Taliban hold grows. Well, back here, the greatest national security threat is white people, so I don't know if they're going to be able to prioritize that. They wouldn't want anybody to get mad at Afghan youths. I think these are 6 really great questions to ask. Will we see major terrorist attack? Is there another refugee crisis on the way? Will there be any political fallout? What about the heroin? And of course, all of these weird, contradictory, chaotic scenes where some of it is chaos and some of it seems actually pretty mum. And did the Taliban really just win, with them being completely unopposed? Good questions to ask. Good questions to ask.